You have been asking me about how to be a better host and ask better questions on your podcast. So, that is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give you some tips on how I have done so many podcast interviews, done them very well without them being super awkward, which is a lot of new podcasters' biggest fears. So, let's get right to it. Hey y'all, Crystal here today, and I'm excited to talk about having better podcast interviews. I love it whenever I get off an interview with a guest and they say, "Man, that was fun," or "You're really good at this," or "I can't wait to come back and do this again." Like, this is my ultimate goal whenever I have anybody on my show, The Profit Podcast. I love getting this feedback, and so I thought I would share a few tips with you today if you are starting to think about interviewing guests for your show. So the first tip I have to share with you today is to slow down. Yes, slow down. You don't just have to hop on the call and immediately rush right into it and start talking about, this is the topic we're going to cover. These are the questions I'm going to talk about. There's this and that. Calm down. Calm down. Your guests can tell when you're flustered, when you're disorganized, or when you have no idea what you are doing, and that's not how you want to start a podcast interview. And I have noticed a trend that's happening with new podcasters. They feel the need to rush through the questions that they have, whether they have 10 questions and they're like, okay, I got to get all 10 questions into this interview, otherwise it's a crappy interview. I have to disagree. I think that in order to have a successful podcast interview, you have to get to the meat of the conversation, like the emotion that is behind the other person on the other side of the microphone, because that's what it should be about. That's how you get to the value that your listeners really want to hear from you and your guest. So tip number 1 is to slow down and don't rush the whole process. My second tip for anybody that's looking to get started with podcast interviews is to have some notes and prepare for your guest. Now, what does this mean? This could mean so many different things. Like for me, I like to read up on my guest, maybe watch a YouTube video or an Instagram or Facebook Live that they've done. I love to listen to their podcast if they're podcasters themselves, but I do some research on my end because it helps questions flow a lot more natural in the actual conversation. So yes, I do prepare some questions. You can actually watch this video right here of some really common questions that you can get started with interviewing your guest. But I found that whenever I come prepared to the conversation, everything just flows. Like it's like you're having a conversation with a friend that maybe you've done a little Google research on, instead of just showing up and saying, "Okay, so I think this is what you do, and I think that this is what you stand for, but I'm not really sure, so let me just ask you these questions that are totally out of left field, and I just had no idea what to do, so this is what I'm doing anyway." No. You want your guests to feel welcome. You want them to feel like, man, I feel really comfortable in this conversation. I can open up more, tell more stories that I normally either wouldn't share or I just wouldn't feel comfortable with a complete stranger. Like, you want them to feel welcome in the conversation and able to share those important messages that they have. So that's my second tip for you, is be prepared, have some notes, and make sure you watch this video again to get you some questions. That way you are ready to go when the interview starts. And the third tip that I have for you to help your guest feel more comfortable is to be casual. Be casual. There's nothing fun about a super formal interview, okay? I can tell you this firsthand. I've had so many interviews over the course of my career where I go into it and my nerves are just crazy and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up. I'm so nervous and I just don't know how this conversation's going to go. I'm not going to get blindsided with a super hard question. Like, those aren't fun. Those are not fun. And to be honest, as a listener of many podcasts, those normally don't make for fantastic conversations either. You can feel that everyone's a little rigid and stiff in the conversation, and they're just like, maybe they're trying to get this information out of them and the guest really doesn't want to give it to them. You don't want that. Okay. A podcast is such an intimate experience for you to have with your listeners that you want it to feel like they're just tuning in, like behind the scenes on a fantastic conversation. So don't go into the podcast interview process so rigid. I want you to take the natural aspects of your personality. Maybe you're a fantastic listener, or maybe you're great at, telling someone like, this is exactly what you said, right? If I'm hearing you correctly, this is what you said, and let's take it in this direction. I know one thing that I've had a lot of my guests say to me is, you do really well at segueing from one segment to another, or taking one idea and spinning it into many different ways that would help your audience. And I really pride myself in the ability of being able to listen to my guest. And the only way that makes that possible is, again, going back to our first two, is slowing down and preparing beforehand. So if you want to have an experience of a guest telling you, man, this was so fun, I cannot wait to come back on your show, then I encourage you to make the conversation casual, make it fun, make it something that they're just like, man, I want to come back here. And another little side tip is I always tell my guests to expect disturbances. And what do I mean by that, right? Well, I have a dog, I have a cat, I have 3 kids, I have Amazon packages that come to my house from time to time. I have lawn guys that show up randomly on our street. Like, I just prepare my guests ahead of time, right before we start recording. I say, hey, just to let you know, if we have any kind of interruption on my end or yours, it's totally fine. I've had people say, oh my gosh, my dog is barking. Is that okay? My kid is screaming in the background. Is that fine? So I want them to know before we ever get started, it's okay. We can fix those. Whether we leave them in or take them out later, it's totally fine. Let's just continue the conversation and we'll worry about that stuff later. So I want you to tell me in the comments below whether you have solo episodes on your podcast as well, or you're strictly doing interviews. We have a mixture of podcasters out there. So I want to know, what do you do as a podcast host? Are you looking to just do interviews only, or are you also looking for tips on solo podcasts? So tell me in the comments below. Okay, let's get back to the video. And the last thing I'll tell you about being a fantastic podcast interviewer is just show up and be yourself. Okay, like, don't try to be somebody that you're not. Don't try to be super fancy because you have this fantastic guest and you're a little nervous. That's okay, but still show up as yourself. Your audience knows when you're not being authentic, or you all of a sudden change the cadence of how you're talking or how you really speak or the things that you say. So just show up as yourself. You are perfectly fine just the way that you are. But that's all I have for you today. So if you are brand new around here, make sure you hit that thumbs up on this video, subscribe below. That way you're notified every time we put out a brand new video all about podcasting and running your online business. Make sure you check out these videos right here that will help you on your journey. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere.